In this video, we are going to learn about another new feature in JavaScript, which is called optional chaining. This feature allows us to access the properties of an object without worrying about errors, like if the object or any of its intermediate properties are null or undefined. This can make your code more concise and readable, and also prevent unwanted bugs and crashes. So let's get started. Now, optional chaining is a syntax that lets you access the properties of an object without checking if the object or any of its intermediate properties exist. Now, for example, let's say we have an object called user and we want to access its address property, on which we have a property called city. And as you can see, we don't have any property in this user object. So if we access the city property and if we store the result in the city variable, now here we can write user dot address dot city. You can see we are getting error, and this is because we don't have this address and city property on this user object. Now to avoid this error, we can use our AND operator to check if these two properties exist on our user object or not. So here we can write user.address and user.address.city like this. Now if we hit save, you can see instead of getting an error, we are getting undefined. And this is because both of these conditions are false. We don't have this user.address property on our user object, and also we don't have this user.address.city property. Now this code works, but it is very verbose and repetitive. It can get even worse if we have more nested properties to access. This is where optional chaining comes in handy. With optional chaining, we can write this same code like this. Here we can write user dot address, then we can use this question mark, then dot, then the property name that we want to access, which is city. Now if I hit save, you can see we are getting the same result, but it is much shorter and simpler. The optional chaining operator will check if this left hand side of the operator is null or undefined. If it is, then it will stop the evaluation and return undefined. If it is not, it will continue to access the right hand side of the operator. This way we can safely access the properties of an object without worrying about errors. Now to demonstrate how optional chaining can be useful in real world scenarios, let's look at an example of a function that takes an array of users and print their names and cities. Now first we are going to create that function. So here we can write function keyword, then the name of the function is print user. Then this function has one parameter, which is user, and then in here we are going to use our for of loop to loop through this array. So for let user of users, so here I am calling this parameter users. So let user of users, then we have our block of code, and in here we can write console.log, then using our template literal, and here we can write name, then colon, then user dot name like this. Now I am just copying this, and here instead of name we can write city colon user dot address dot city like this. Now this function assumes that every user in the array has a name and an address with a city. However, this may not always be the case. Some user may not have this address property, or their address may not have a city property. In that case, this function will throw an error and stop working. To fix this, we can use optional chaining to access the city property safely. So here, instead of writing user.address.city, here we are going to use our optional chaining like this. And by doing this, now we are checking that the user have this address property or not. And then if our user has address property, then it will print their name and city as before. If they don't, it will print their name and undefined for the city. This way, our function will not throw an error and will handle all the possible cases gracefully. Now after this, we are going to test this function. So to test this, first we need two arrays. Now I just created these two arrays, and here you can see this first user has address property, also has a city property with the value of London. But in this second user array, this user don't have city property, and this user don't have the value for this city property. So first we are going to call our print user function like this, and then we will use our users one array like this. Now if I hit save, you can see we are getting our username and the city name as well. This is our first user, this is our second user, and this is our third user. And now I am going to test this second array. And if I hit save, and here you can see because this address don't have city property, that's why we are getting undefined, because we are using optional chaining in our function. If we remove this and if I hit save, you can see now we are getting error. So to avoid these error, we simply need to use our optional chaining syntax, and if I hit save, now we are getting undefined instead of error. And this way, we can safely access the properties of an object without worrying about errors. I hope this helps you understand how optional chaining works in JavaScript. And that's all I want to show you in this video. So we learned about optional chaining, which is a new feature in JavaScript that lets us access the properties of an object without checking if the object or any of its intermediate properties exist. We saw how optional chaining can make our code more concise and readable, and also prevent unwanted bugs and crashes. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of new videos. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.